The John M. Mckerchey, built for her first owner, whose name was also Mr. John M. Mccertie of Detroit, Michigan. The Mccertie was built in 1906 by the Great Lakes Engineering Works. She had a length of 161 feet, a width of 37, and a depth of 11. The Mccertie was actually a very unique vessel, that being that she was the very first vessel ever to be built to carry both coal and lumber, and she was also made for sand dredging as well. The Mccertie would operate primarily in the Detroit River, Lake St. Clair area. She would dredge the bottom for very clean sand and gravel, which at the time was very necessary for the construction business and the making of concrete. When the Mccertie's first owner, Mr. John Mccertie, died in 1912, she would actually be bought over by the C.H. Little Company of Detroit. And then again in 1915, she would be sold to the United Fuel and Supply Company of Detroit. After this, the Mccertie would then continue shipping coal and lumber and dredging sand as well for her normal operations. Finally, 8 years later in 1923, the Mccertie would have her last ownership. She would be owned by the Kelly Island Lime and Transportation Company. She would also be slightly rebuilt in 1929 as well. Overall, the John M. Mccertie had a very successful career. However, this would sadly and tragically come to an end on October 16, 1950. On October 16, 1950, the John M. Mccertie would take on a cargo of sand. This was at a pumping ground located about 8 miles from Lorain, and it was around 1:15 a.m. After the Mccertie was loaded with her cargo of sand, she would depart. However, about 30 minutes after departure, water was discovered to be entering the forepeak tank of the Mccertie. This rapid inflow of water into the Mccertie would actually cause her to capsize. This water inflow could not be controlled, and it resulted in her capsizing again and settling at the bottom of Lake Erie. Even though the Mccertie capsized, all the crew members were able to safely escape her. However, her captain did not. Captain Horace Johnson did not make it. In a report from the U.S. Coast Guard, it is stated that there was multiple or ample opportunities for Captain Horace Johnson to abandon ship along with the crew. However, he elected to stay aboard. This is for unknown reasons. Staying aboard the Mccertie as she capsized, he would drown. As the Mccertie would settle on the bottom of Lake Erie, it was actually still within the vicinity of Lorain Harbor, Ohio, not far from the entrance as well. Again, all of the crew members aboard the Mccertie were eventually rescued by the Coast Guard, and apparently they were able to make it aboard the lifeboats as well before her capsizing. But sadly, she would be abandoned in her place where she lay, along with her captain, Horace Johnson. Eventually, the decision was made that her wreck was a hazard to other navigating vessels, and her remains would be dynamited to be removed, as they caused an obstruction and danger to the harbor entrance. However, before her remains were dynamited, a diver was sent to her to retrieve the body of Captain Horace Johnson. It's also worth noting here that residents around the Detroit area where the Mccertie would frequent weren't exactly sad to see her gone, as they would always fear that she would suck away their golden beaches. The Mccertie would be a familiar sight in those areas. What exactly sank the John M. Mccertie is somewhat up for debate. As some people say, it was structural failure and the inrushing of water within her that would cause her capsizing. However, some would state that it was actually a storm with hurricane-force winds and massive waves that would accumulate shortly after her departure. Either way, it looks to be a factor of multiple things that would contribute to her demise. This ultimately would be the tragic ending to the John M. Mccertie. However, her story is worth telling, especially the bravery of her captain, Captain Horace Johnson. May he rest in peace. So discovering this story, it brought some thoughts to my mind about it. I believe that it was multiple factors. I early on in my research with her, I didn't get to the storm part that they had stated. I only found that they talked about her the inrushing of water, and that would cause her capsizing. I'll also post the links to the report that was given that they would try to manage the pumps to get the water out, but I guess it was just coming in too fast. But then the circumstance of the storm, apparently after the Mccertie left, she was caught in a severe weather, and these waves are said to have been 20 feet high, and the winds were quite something. It's funny, well, not funny, it's ironic in the recording of this video. The weather out on the Great Lakes right now the waves are actually reaching about 30 feet in height right now. 30 feet of waves out there, and that's quite something. None of the ships are out on the lakes right now, checking on the radar and just seeing where they're all anchored, and thank goodness for that. But yeah, either way, she must have, I think it was a bit of both, that she got caught by this freak storm that must have whipped up so quickly, which I can see that, I can believe that these living on the Great Lakes, the weather can go from calm one minute to tragic the next, and then this must have been something that they didn't catch right away, as one of the engineers or one of the other crew members, when he found the leak, the water was already up to his knees, and by the time they started working the pumps, there wasn't enough time. So I'm also going to give again Captain Horace Johnson the massive credit of bravery. I believe he did absolutely everything correctly, and to ensure the safety of his crew, and that they got off safely, as he was given every chance to also join them. But I have to believe that he wanted to be absolutely certain of their safety first. And what a hero, and what a great amount of courage for him. But ultimately he would perish with her. So the capsizing must have been pretty quickly after everybody got off. Maybe he was planning on joining them after they were safe, but we may never know. Either way, I thank you all so very much in joining me in the last ship video of 2025. Thank you everybody so very much for the immense support that you have given this channel in growing over this last year. I can't thank you enough for it, and I am beyond excited to see what 2026 will bring for this channel. I am sure it's a lot of great stuff. I posted in the channel a day or two ago, I plan on bringing you more goodness that you guys love. All Great Lakes ships, shipwreck stories, guests, and I want to go to more in-person locations and do some more tour videos, and just whatever I can do for you guys, as I definitely see there's a hunger for Great Lakes maritime history and the ships and the crew, everything that comes with it. So I thank you everybody in the US that's watching this, the good old United States, and in Canada and overseas. We actually have viewers overseas in Europe, UK, I believe, that watch these videos as well. So thank you everybody so very much for helping this channel grow. God bless you, and happy 2026 as well. Celebration coming up here from us, my family, to yours. And until then, guys, I'll see you next year on the next episode of Songs of the Great Lakes.